Let's go to the next one, which is Leria Company. Discuss with reference to IFRS standards whether the directors can classify the stadium as held for sale at 31st of October 2005. Leria Company's accounting treatment of the crowd barrier improvements at 31st of October 2005. Principles of the accounting treatment for sale and leaseback of stadium at 30th of November 2006. Leria Company has entered into a contract regarding its stadium whereby it will sell the stadium on 30th November 2006 and immediately lease it back. The directors of Leria Company wish to classify the stadium as a non-current asset held for sale in its financial statements for the year ended 31st of October 2005, as they believe the sale to be highly probable at that date. The sale contract requires the disposal of the stadium for its fair value, which is also the market value of 30 million, and for Leria Company to lease it back over 10 years. The present value of lease payments at market rates on 30th of November 2006 will be 26 million. The market value for a stadium of this type has not changed in several years and is unlikely to change in the near future. The stadium is being depreciated by 5% per annum using the reducing balance method. In the year to 31st of October 2006, it is anticipated that 2 million will be spent to improve the crowd barriers in the stadium. There is no legal requirement to improve the crowd barriers. Leria Company has incorrectly treated this amount as a reduction of the carrying amount at 31st of October 2005, and corresponding debit has been made to P&L. At 31st of October, the carrying amount of the stadium after depreciation and deduction of crowd barrier improvements is 18 million. First of all, can the stadium be classified as held for sale? What do you think?
Again, we have to see the conditions. If those are satisfied, can be classified as held for sale. It is probable that sale can be made at within 1 year.
Hmm.
And then
But did it happen within 1 year? See, when was this decision made? Decided to sell the stadium on 30th November 2000. Okay, the directors of Leria wish to
future,
classify the stadium as a non-current asset held for sale in its financial statements for year ended 31st of October 2005, as they believe the sale to be highly probable at this date. The sale is at a value which is in line with its fair value, right?
yeah, it is being marketed at a reasonable price.
Okay. And the sale contract requires the disposal of the stadium and there will be a lease back. Present value of lease payments is so and so. The market value of the stadium is given to you and it is going to be depreciated, wo bhi diya hai. In the year to 31st of October 2006, it is anticipated that nahi, ye alag part hai. What do you think? See, Leria has entered into a contract whereby it will sell the stadium on 30th November 2006. You are on 31st of October 2005. For it to be considered as a non-current asset held for sale, the sale should be probable in the next 12 months. Correct? Is it, although there is a firm sales contract, no doubt, contract hai, but is it happening within the next 12 months classification? Is it happening that way?
No,
Yes.
sir.
No, sir. No,
Yes.
sir. The next 12 months will be 1st November 2026.
And this is there is a firm sale commitment. Okay, please do not mistake that. There is a firm sale commitment, but it is not expected to happen within the next 12 months. And for it to be considered as a non-current asset held for sale, it has to happen within the next 12 months. So do you agree that just because of that 12-month wala clause, we cannot classify this as a non-current asset held for sale, although baki ke all other conditions are getting fulfilled, there is this one condition which is not getting fulfilled, hence cannot be classified as non-current asset held for sale. ठीक है?
Yes.
ये
Yes,
सब
sir.
था इस क्वेश्चन में, बाकी कोई इशू नहीं था. Leria Company's accounting treatment of crowd barrier improvements. What do you think should, or what is this crowd barrier doing?
Enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
These are future expenses.
Yeah.
What they have done is
They
they
have deducted from
it
the carrying amount of the asset.
I believe that is stupid. एक तो first of all, in the year to 31st of October 2006, next year में, it is anticipated that 2 million will be spent to improve the crowd barrier. There is no legal requirement to improve the crowd barrier. Now, company has incorrectly reduced that from the assets carrying amount, corresponding debit has been made to P&L. ये तो गलत ही है ना all angles से. ठीक है, and there I don't think that it is possible to create a provision also. Why? Because there is no present obligation na.
No, yes, sir.
For you to create a present obligation, there has to be uh for you to create a provision, there has to be a present obligation, and I don't see that happening. That 2 million should be added back to the amount of stadium and credited to P&L, right?
Sir, why there is
Yeah.
no legal obligation? मतलब if the sale is not expected to happen above the sale and lease back वाला, तो
हम्म
अभी तो हमारे बुक्स में ही है. तो जो 2 मिलियन का जो इम्प्रूवमेंट जो बता रहे हैं वो क्राउड बैरियर के लिए है कि भाई साउंड डैम्पनिंग मतलब जो भी है, बट
हम्म
नो लीगल रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है, बट वो इम्प्रूव कर रहा है ना
बट
फैसिलिटी.
इम्प्रूव कर रहा है, बट is there an obligation to pay? Is there a present obligation?
तो नहीं, प्रेजेंट ऑब्लिगेशन तो नहीं है,
और
मतलब
अगर एक बार
कंपल्शन
में
नहीं
हुआ
है.
है, if on 31st of December 31st of October 2005 that 2 million has not been incurred also na, तो how will you adjust it in the asset value first of all? Asset value में तो तभी कुछ भी adjustment होगा ना when the amount has been incurred.
अमाउंट इज बीन
अगर
इनकर्ड,
हुआ तो
फ्यूचर
add होगा, subtract नहीं होगा.
सब्ट्रैक्ट नहीं होगा. हाँ.
Right. And IAS 37 वाला issue भी यहाँ पे doesn't really make sense because this is a future expense and there is no present obligation. Present obligation कब होता है? You have a present obligation when there is no realistic alternative apart from making the payment. यहाँ पे there, when will that be? If it is legally required for you to do so, है ना? But यहाँ पे तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. So that entire accounting is wrong. ठीक है? Have a
यस.
quick look. But I have not picked up this question for non-current asset held for sale or this. Part B के लिए I want to do this question. Part A is easy. ठीक है? Third part I am not doing with you. We have done principles of the accounting treatment for sale and leaseback of the stadium. Discuss the principles of accounting. वो आपको discuss the accounting treatment and then justify what amount is debited, credited where. उतना आपको बताना है. ठीक है? This I am not doing. This you do on your own. Now discuss whether
Small doubt here. The carrying amount will be 20 million, right? After adjusting back the adjustment for this barrier.
yes, yes.
That's the, okay.
ठीक है. Second part. Leria company has its own subscription-based television station. As a result, it has material intangible assets which relate to the content rights associated with the television program. The budgeted cost of production are based on the estimated future revenues for the TV show. These costs of production are then capitalized as an intangible asset and called content rights. The directors of Leria company believe that the intellectual property in the content rights is consumed as customers view the TV program. Leria currently amortizes the content rights based upon the estimated future revenues from the television program. For example, if a television program is expected to generate 8 million of revenue in total and 4 million is generated in year 1, then 50% gets amortized in year 1. Industry practice is to amortize the capitalized cost of the program less its recoverable amount over its remaining useful life. They have asked whether the amortization of intangible assets, relating to television program is acceptable policy in accordance with IFRS standard. Now, use what for depreciation or amortization. The basis for calculation of depreciation or amortization basically depends upon the pattern of usage of the asset, not on the revenue generated. Because revenue will be influenced by a lot of factors which are not related to the asset itself. Now, revenue will be determined by demand, revenue will be determined by a lot of external factors. Revenue is not a reflection of the ability of the asset to produce output. Revenue is a reflection of a lot of other things. So saying that I want to amortize my asset on the basis of the revenue that it generates is not going to be very, very helpful. है ना? If you can show that your revenue and the economic activity of the asset are correlated, then it makes sense. Now, in this case, the economic activity of just one moment, guys. Okay, so what we were saying is revenue usually should not be used to determine amortization or depreciation. But if we are able to show that revenue mirrors the pattern of usage of the asset, then revenue can be used as a basis for amortization. ठीक है? Now, यहाँ पे revenue and consumption of economic benefit of that intangible asset, they seem pretty much correlated with each other. So that can be used as a basis for amortization. Industry practice is also acceptable. That is also not a problem. ठीक है कि यूजफुल लाइफ निकालो बट टेलीविजन प्रोग्राम का यूजफुल लाइफ डिपेंड्स अपॉन द कंजम्पशन. How many people watch it? How much revenue are you generating? So in this case, you can frame an answer like that also. अब ये ऐसा क्वेश्चन है जिसका आंसर इज देर इज नो वन स्टैंडर्ड कैलकुलेशन तो चलो है ही नहीं. देर इज नो स्टैंडर्ड आंसर कि भाई हर बार आपको ऐसे ही करना है. As long as you are able to explain your point well, you will get marks. यहाँ पे the whole focus was on, that one small line in IAS 16, IAS 38 में तो मैंने उसको उतना डिस्कस भी नहीं किया था. What line? That the revenue generation ability of a particular asset is usually not considered as the right basis for calculating the depreciation amortization. Why? Because revenue depends not necessarily on the usage of the asset but on a lot of other factors. So usually revenue should not be considered as the basis for calculating amortization. But if you are able to prove that the pattern of usage of the asset and the uh, pattern of usage of the asset and the ability to generate revenue are actual revenue generation are closely correlated, in that case you can use that to amortize. आपको इस बात पे कमेंट करने को बोला है क्वेश्चन में. ठीक है. सो द क्वेश्चन इज आई वुड से it's more of an intellectual thought leader type of question, not so much as compliance with an accounting standard. And this is what makes SBR different from other accounting exams. Indian CA exams में ऐसा question नहीं आता है. They have a different way of testing questions. This is quite unique only to your ACCA exams. ठीक है. एक बार पढ़ो इसको. What is a rebuttable presumption? A rebuttable presumption is something that can be proven wrong. ठीक है. A presumption that can be proven wrong is a rebuttable presumption.
So can you scroll down, please?
Sorry. Done? Now,
Yes, sir.
player's contract. Roshan, can you read this?
Players' contract cost. Players' registration contract costs are shown as an intangible assets and are initially recognized the fair value of consideration paid for their acquisition. However, subsequently, players' contracts are often renegotiated at a cost. Also, players' contract may contain contingent performance conditions where individual players may be paid a bonus based on their success in terms of goals scored or the success of football team as a whole. These bonus represents additional contract cost. For impairment purposes, Leria Co. does not consider that it is possible to determine the value in use of an individual player unless the player were to suffer a career-threatening injury or cannot play in the team. Players only generate direct cash flows when they are sold to another football club.
Okay. What should we do here? What is the question? The question is how to account for the player's contract cost, including the contingent performance conditions, any impairment which might be required to these non-current assets, and whether a player can be considered as a single CGU. For all the sports enthusiasts here, do you think that is a good practice to consider a player as a CGU?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
So initial recognition of the player's contract. See, when a player signs a contract, the initial registration cost is you have to pay him a specific fee. है ना? What is happening? Initially recognized at the fair value of consideration paid for their acquisition. Subsequently, players' contracts are often renegotiated at a cost. See, that contract, you are not accounting the player, huh? Please understand. You are accounting for the contract that you have entered into with the player. Correct? यहाँ पे when a contract is signed, management should know कि what are the performance conditions related to it. Correct? And you are going to make him certain payments. एक लमसम पेमेंट होगा, मे बी कोई रजिस्ट्रेशन फीस होगा, कुछ if there is a contingent consideration if management believes that performance conditions are met. Now, if the performance conditions are likely to be met, then the contingent consideration should also be included immediately in the asset cost. If not, then don't include. Okay. Now, what happens is the management has to reassess the performance conditions regularly. If the contingent amount becomes payable later, then you have to add the amount at that date the moment it becomes probable. ठीक है. There has to be a disclosure with respect to contingent amounts not yet included. ठीक है. Then because it has been the contract has been accounted for as an intangible asset, not the player. Please understand. It is the contract that has been accounted for as an intangible asset, right? Not play आपने प्लेयर को नहीं खरीदा है. हाँ, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट्स अ वेरी रॉन्ग नोशन that one can put out. That contract can be considered as an intangible asset. Naturally उसको amortize करना पड़ेगा over the length of the contract. When the contract gets renegotiated, ठीक है, when a player gets an extension, that renegotiation increases the carrying amount of the intangible, तो उसको increase करो. And what happens if a player suffers an injury?
That contract needs to be impaired.
Very good. Uh, you will have to test it for impairment as per IAS 36, carrying amount, recoverable amount, consider karo. Uh, Value in use might be a little difficult to measure for a single player because in this, what is the game that they are talking about?
Both.
Football.
Football, individual player game nahi hai na, it's a team sport. So one player can never be considered as a CGU that way. है ना? So value in use will be a little difficult to calculate, right? Players do not generate cash flows individually. They contribute to team performance. So जो है वो team is a CGU that way. Individual player is not a CGU. है ना? The group or the team or whatever we want to call it, that is a CGU. So that is how you will have to frame your answer. Now, this is, I think, where I really like SBR as a paper. It's different. It doesn't behave like, your CA ऐसा क्वेश्चन आपको CA फाइनल में कभी नहीं आएगा. बट यहाँ पे आएगा एंड इट्स अ गुड क्वेश्चन. How exactly do, for example, you are trying to account for contract cost of players that has been negotiated. Principles that we are applying are for अपना regular IAS 38 only. But how to connect that with facts of the case? SBR में ये इशू अभी तक किसी का आया नहीं है मेरे पास इन द टेस्ट दैट आई हैव चेक. बट व्हाट पीपल ऑफन डू इज दे जस्ट कोट समथिंग बिकॉज दैट इज हाउ दे हैव अंडरस्टूड थिंग्स. कोई एक स्टैंडर्ड का वर्डिंग वर्डिंग कुछ कोट कर देंगे बट दे विल नॉट को रिलेटेड विथ फैक्ट्स ऑफ द केस. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स अ ह्यूज टर्न ऑफ फॉर द एग्जामिनर. मतलब मजा नहीं आता है उसमें बिकॉज इट डजेंट रियली एड अप इन एनी वे. Okay, so I believe whenever you want to get marks in this or any other paper, correlating that with facts of the case is important. We have understood how the accounting part is done. Don't worry, I have included the detailed, matlab answer से ज़्यादा I have included a summary for you to keep in mind. ठीक है. सो जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड दैट आपको आंसर शीट में सारा कुछ मिल जाएगा कि कैसे लिखना है क्या लिखना है. एटलीस्ट द पॉइंटर्स यू विल गेट हियर. ठीक है. कंटिंजेंट कंसिडरेशन, इनिशियल रिकॉग्निशन. ठीक है. दिस इज पार्ट बी. ठीक है. और इसको एक बार गो थ्रू इट. वी हैव डिस्कस्ड ऑल द पॉइंट्स एंड विद दैट वी आर डन विद 2 more क्वेश्चंस फॉर द डे. ठीक है. चलो.